All right, we're live. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Bill?
Good. All right, man. It's another year, another new version of Revit. I'm curious, like, okay, so do you anticipate, like, every year, do you look forward to these? Are they usually like a built-up kind of thing, or is it kind of like, you're not as excited? The nerd in me is always excited about new versions of Revit, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts.
Yeah, it's the best day at the office. Maybe not that much, but it's good. Especially the last few, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years since they've had their sort of, Autodesk has had like an online, I don't know, forum thing where you can see the features they're working on and vote for the ones you like. So that's been cool to follow. Just, oh man, this is coming up. That we could sort of see it more ahead of time. I feel a little more connected to what they've been doing.
Definitely, likewise. Yeah, they have like, they're exposing that more. It's like more transparent, right, to the rest of the community, which is cool. And they've always had like the voting, but I feel like maybe recently, just with the advent of like the open letter, I feel like maybe they're starting to listen to the community more. And I think that spurred some of that. So I think there's some really good things that came from that. Have you got a chance? I know like you've been working with the API a bit. We have a special, I don't know if you want to call it a prize or a gift at the end here, but there's some pretty cool stuff happening with the API as well. Have you got a chance to dig into that a little bit as well as some of the features?
Yeah, I'd probably spend more time looking at the new API than the actual new Revit features. Because there's a couple things that came out that there were, I guess, Revit shortcomings or API shortcomings that I've sort of dealt with or made workarounds for various projects in the past. So when I saw those coming up, I got a little excited, although it kind of makes a lot of my work, some of my work, a little bit not needed for 2022.
Yeah, I hear that.
Makes a lot of stuff easier too. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I haven't got into the API as much, except that there's one cool feature which we'll tease out and we'll show at the end here. But I'll jump in here. I wanted to show some of the new features, and I want to get your opinion. Like maybe for those that don't know you, Daniel, could you give a brief introduction? I mean, I think with you being a licensed architect, not to steal your thunder, but like you dabble in a lot of things. Like you're a licensed architect. You also dabble in code and execute a lot of cool apps. Can you give the viewers like a little bit of insight to you and what you're about?
Sure. I mean, I guess I still am an architect. Did all the architect things, went to architecture school, the 5-year thing, and I worked at a few different firms. Actually, I had an intern right after I graduated. I worked one-on-one with one of my old professors. He hired me for a summer. So we were like biking to meetings. I had one of those tubes with drawings in it.
Those are awesome. I had one of those as well.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had to touch those. But I spent, I think, 6-ish years at AECOM, which, as most people probably know, one of the bigger AEC firms in the world. So I got to work on some larger projects there. I've been a licensed architect in 2 different states for a couple of years, well, 3, 4 years now.
Sweet. That's great, man.
That's the architecture side.
I like it. And then you're starting to do some coding. I mean, you did coding before Evolve Lab, but even more so now here, right?
Yeah, much more. And I've always been into the coding. I feel like the software for most people in the industry or certain people in the industry is pretty important, since a lot of these things that get built in the real world, sometimes the physical output is affected by the tools we use or your knowledge of the tools we use. So that's why I started getting into the back end stuff. And I think I had a minor I did in computer science. So I've always found that kind of fascinating. But more recently, past few years, started applying it more and more to Revit and architecture, engineering kind of programs.
Sweet.
See what we can do. Yeah.
I love it. That might be a good segue. What I want to do, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share some of what we have going on as it relates to the Revit new features. And I want to play a little game. Is does it impress Daniel? All right. So we're gonna see. You can rate it from like we'll go 0 to 10, and you say, "Oh, my mind's blown," or it's like, "Yeah, it's a nice to have, but it doesn't move the needle." So with that, let's jump in. I'm gonna start off with some of my favorites, and I'm curious if they're your favorites, Daniel. It's okay or not, but One of the cool new features that they added in Revit 2022 is the ability to just show the stud layer. So like this has been like long-standing, you know, architects with a typical way that they document projects is to document and dimension to stud. And that's really important, right? Like when someone's starting to install some framing out on the site, they're not measuring to the drywall, they're measuring and installing per where the stud's at. And so a lot of architects dimension to face a stud. And you could dimension that, but you couldn't graphically show just the stud layer. So now they've introduced this no core layers underneath the visibility graphic. So if I hit that, it only shows the stud layers. And then of course, you know, you can go through and start to dimension to just studs. So I'm curious, from a 1 to 10, what does that do for you as a licensed architect?
Oh man, a number rating, I don't know. I thought this one was pretty cool. Maybe I'll put it at like a 7 or 8. I worked on a lot of interior, like a lot of office spaces, which have tons of partition plans and things. And yeah, when you're getting shop drawings and stuff to the framing contractor, the framers, whoever's out, it was a little tedious to find the right line to dimension to. Caused a lot of mistakes because, like you said, you couldn't hide it. We actually made, I've had like fake 2D drawings where we line work everything. Or the other workaround was using the line work tool, which is very unreliable. Yeah, and it's very hard to know what people have done or to undo, to know what lines are overridden, etc.
And this one's dangerous too, right? Because I know this is a new feature, so I don't want to get too bogged down with this, but BIM managers really don't like users knowing too much about this one because you can start to invisible line some stuff and then people don't see what you've turned off. So that one tends to be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it's not good to use, but there were cases sometimes like this where it was the only really available workaround. Yep. So I think this one's pretty awesome.
That's good. Sweet. Now the other one that a lot of people are pretty excited about is the tapered wall function. Now they introduced the sloped walls a few years ago. I have some stuff over here that I want to show later with the format and the Rhino integration. But like if you draw a wall in here and you want the wall to be tapered, there's a prerequisite. So first off, the first thing that you have to do is you have to go into the wall structure and change this layer to variable. So if whatever layer you want to taper, this is the one that you have to do. So you have to first do that as a variable. And let's say maybe like we'll use something that's a little more realistic, maybe like CMU or something like that. So if we have this kind of layer in it and it's tapered, what you can do is you can now, in the properties, you can change the cross section from vertical to tapered, and then you override the type properties, and then you can change, you know, the angle of this guy. And so if I change this, say like, you know, 5 degrees or whatever, you get this tapered effect with walls, which is pretty cool. Like in the past, you've had to use like the Revit conceptual massing environment, load it in, wall by face it. It's always been a challenge. Things would get disconnected. It also like, it does honor like if you have, you know, penetrations like doors or windows, which is pretty cool too. And then further, they also have the ability where you could, you know, you can put in the angle here versus in the properties, or you can actually drag these, you know, to a certain location if you want as well. So what are your thoughts on the tapered wall command?
It's kind of neat. Yeah. I think it's not as impressive as the slope walls last year, which was really cool. And I think they've also, is this true? They've added the sloped wall edit profile ability.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Because in most Revit projects, by the time you're done, almost all walls like end up getting some sort of custom profile. Definitely. In general, though, oh, sorry. Were you gonna...
No, good. No, good.
In general, I like that they seem to be trying to take the more common wall necessities, I guess, and make them available using the native wall families instead of wall by mass. The wall by masses are really handy sometimes. You can do some complex forms, but it also kind of shuts you out of using a lot other Revit functionality on those walls because they're a little bit kind of like a different entity.
Definitely. Yeah, agreed.
I can't say I can think of too many times that I would have used tapered walls, but retaining walls, I'm sure it's out there.
Definitely. Yeah, the conceptual
wall.
Yeah, in the conceptual massing environment, I always called that Autodesk best kept secret because I felt like, with the exception of Zach Cron and his blog post, like I didn't see a lot, of people knowing about that environment. But it was like the way you had to do, these kind of geometries. And I think this is much better. Like having it as a system family, being able to edit it natively in the project is much better.
Yeah, this is cool. The mass environment is really cool, but the modeling tools, kind of like the Revit family, are not so, maybe intuitive is not the right word, but they're dissimilar from many other 3D modeling softwares, like the way you create a surface and how it's, or a volume, a solid, etc., how it kind of works. So you kind of a whole separate knowledge set to use to try to get what you want. If only you could just import like Format or link Rhino stuff, which you can, right?
Yeah, you can do that now. So yeah, so let's jump to that. So you do have the ability now to link Rhino models. So before you could import them, but you couldn't link them. So what's really nice about this is I do have this Rhino model that Chris shared with me. Chris on our team, one of our Grasshopper gurus. Shout out to Chris. We have this this Rhino model here, and so like any updates that we were, that we make on this, and you link it into your model, you can go through and do your typical, manage links, click on your Rhino model, and then do a reload, which we didn't have before. You just had, the import function. So that's really nice as well. So I noticed they're doing a little bit more towards like tipping the hat towards like interoperability. It's not true interoperability yet. It's just the linking. But the Format integration actually was the one that I was pretty surprised about. What they did is they added this this button in here, and it's this Format 3D sketch. You're pretty intimately familiar with Format, right? You helped out with some efforts on that, I heard.
Yeah, disclaimer: we were working with the Autodesk Format team on some of their primers and tutorials and things, so I really got to explore Format. And I don't know, a lot of the cool tools that are in there.
Definitely.
That maybe a lot of people don't know about because they've used SketchUp or Rhino or something else, but it's worth checking out. I think if you have a lot, I can't remember exactly how the licensing works, but it might come with the whatever Autodesk design package.
Yeah, the industry collection, it comes as part of it. So if I go through here, this one I was really surprised. I was like, okay, it's supposed to have some kind of Format, Revit integration. How does this work? If you go to the Massing and Site tab, there's this little button here called Format 3D Sketch. And if you click on this, it'll actually launch Format. It takes a few seconds here, especially if you have more geometry like I do here. And what I was really surprised about, which you'll see here when it pops up, is that it actually will contextualize your Revit model. So it'll open up Format, but then contextually you'll have all of your other geometry. Of course, it's loading here. I have a version of it already open here, so maybe I'll just jump to that. But in here, you can see it'll actually bring in all of the geometry that you have within your Revit model. Maybe it's open now. I think it is now. There we go. So you can see even here, like this wall, this tapered wall and this sloped wall that we just did with the profiles and everything is showing up in real time in the Format sketch, which is really helpful, I think, to have if you're doing like some urban infilling and having some contextual geometry to work with.
Yeah, and you can go ahead and right off that geometry too. Use copy, and I think somehow the layers control what is Revit and what gets imported back into what Format things come back. But maybe they come in as meshes. I can't quite remember.
Yeah. So what they did is they introduced this send the selected model back to Revit. So like I just have a box here, but before I do that, what I wanted to show is that if you actually go through it, you can paint, like different faces over here. So if I click like, this color and I put that on there, and then I launch back to Revit, specified included objects, all visible except Revit context layer. I think this is the one I want. And if I push this back, it'll actually push that geometry back over to Revit. So this new geometry is here. And then if you change this to realistic mode, the materials actually go along for the ride as well. So you can see like I painted that, and now it's over here in the Revit file. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. I thought that was pretty cool. That kind of integration, the contextual. What I understand is they're trying to let the user work in its respective platform. Like they're not trying to make Revit Format, and they're not trying to necessarily make Format Revit, but trying to let you use each tool, but better integrate them, as I understand it.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I think it's pretty cool. You can use a lot of formats, more fluid, maybe more intuitive modeling tools, and they have some material editing tools and customization in there, and then it all will just come right back into Revit. What the tricks the Autodesk staff showed me is to use your section box in 3D and just pick a section of your model where you want to do some design studies, and then you can go into Format and just on different layers make different freeform shapes, whatever you want, pretty quickly, probably a lot quicker than you can do it in Revit. And then just import them back and maybe put them on design options or something.
That sounds like a really cool workflow. Maybe that's maybe in like a future live session, maybe you could show us how to do that. I think that sounds like a really cool kind of like
pretty cool workflow. But there's a lot of options there with Format, and that's just And you have the Rhino too.
Definitely.
And I think the materials are separated too, and somehow you can control the visibility of the Format imported things, but also in the material library, it groups all the Format materials together too. Within
the Revit environment or within Format?
Within both within Revit. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. You have to show us maybe on
if we're doing if we're gonna do Format 2022, that one has lots of new features too.
I like it. Get it on the calendar. I like it. All right, moving on. Just because we have limited time here, I want to keep trying to get through these features. The other one that I was pleasantly surprised, this is I forgot to ask you, what from a scale of 1 to 10, the Format Revit integration, what's your thoughts on that?
I'd probably call that a 6, 7.
6 or 7.
One downside, it's great for the form modeling and stuff. I think the one downside is the family. Everything in Format comes in as if you select one of those, a specific type family.
Yep.
Or an imported AXM object. Anyway, I think it'd be cool if it could develop even further, so you could have wall layers or window objects or stuff in Format that kind of cave in and adapt to their respective properties. Maybe that's the next level. But
I like that. It's a good suggestion. Maybe bring it back to the Autodesk team on that. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Hard, but cool.
Yeah. All right. So this other one that they introduced, phase filters. Now you've always had phase filters. When you go to your phases, you get project phases, phase filters, graphic overrides, etc. But you've always been limited on the graphic output of said phases, and specifically what elements get associated to that phase filter. So as an example, like I can't parse out walls exclusively. I can't parse out ceilings exclusively within this kind of phasing box here. But what they did is they introduced the ability to bring the phasing environment into phase filters, or excuse me, into filters, into Revit filters. And so I just set up a few of these just to kind of test it out. I created one, for walls, and I created another one for ceilings. And so what's cool about this is that you can now not only modify based on the phase it's associated to, but the category of the objects within that phase. And so I can start to go through and very surgically say, hey, I just want the walls, or I just want the ceilings. And then further, I can also say which phase it's associated to. So it gives us kind of a more, surgical approach for applying phases within the phase filters. And I'm not sure, I mean, this seems like pretty robust here. I'm curious to see what happens to that kind of phase dialog box. But this allows you to really kind of meticulously edit those specifically based on phase and by category. That one I thought was pretty darn cool. And I didn't know if you had thoughts or comments on that one.
Yeah, that's cool. So can you see objects from like different phases filtered in the same view?
Yeah, I think so, if I understand your question, right? So like we have different objects assigned to different phases. Like this one here is phase 1, the walls, and then phase 2 for the ceilings. And then you can associate the colors to them.
If they exist at this, yeah, this is pretty neat. Much more finite control over the phasing.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty cool. So that one's pretty neat. And I'm curious too, like if anyone that's listening on the YouTube channel or on LinkedIn, some of you guys might be on our website. If you're on the YouTube part or on LinkedIn, you should be able to comment. So would love your guys' thoughts or feedback on some of these features. If you think they're good, if you agree with Daniel and or myself or disagree, let us know what you think about some of the features, because I'd be curious to see what you guys think on some of these. And rate it. Let's do a rating 0 to 10. What your thoughts are? Does it solve a pain point? Does it not solve a pain point? Be really good to know. All right. That is the phase filters. The other thing that they started to introduce, going back to our 3D view here, is the ability to add grids to 3D views. And so I think Navisworks has had this for quite some time. They introduced, levels in 3D view, I think version 2020, 2019, somewhere around there. And so then now they've introduced, being able to have grids in 3D view. And for me, like I do a fair amount of modeling in 3D. Like I actually don't do a whole lot in floor plans. Like even if I'm doing like a floor plan, I'll typically like do a top-down view. And I'm always trying to, because I just feel like I can get around like the model quicker. And so being able to have those grids available in a 3D view, I found super helpful. I would say for me, I'm going to rate this one. It's probably like a 2, 3 for me. Like it's helpful, not mind blown, but helpful.
Yeah, I feel that. It's kind of the natural successors to the layer thing. I find it handy, especially during project setup or maintenance, being able to manipulate the overall grids in 3D. Sometimes if you're trying to keep all your grids organized, you have to set up a view and make sure that none of the grids have been switched to just the 2D extent in that view. So it's hard to see where if you have multiple buildings, then you get grids from one building overlapping another. Just to manage them, it seems like it will be handy. And back to what you said a little bit earlier, the 3D view thing. Yeah, I find a lot of people I worked with when I kind of fell into the BIM manager role, especially newer Revit people, would end up working a lot in lots of 2D views. I think what you mentioned is a great point. To be able to work in 3D sometimes avoids errors and make things more efficient. To work between lots of different perspectives at the same time. Maybe you select something in a 2D view and then you drag it in a 3D view and then edit the profile in a section or something all at once.
Definitely. And they have this the function here. This isn't part of the new features, but in here you have the this allows you to know whether or not you're changing 3D or 2D. So that's always been there. That part's free. Wasn't included as part of the presentation, but that's something to note as well. And good comment, Daniel, on having like multiple views, working in multiple views simultaneously. That's really good. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you try to align them in 3D? We had a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that works. Align, grids in 3D.
Really good question. Let's test it out. So let's say like if I have this guy, I don't know. I don't see like the little bubble on it to be able to even move it. I'm sure like you could do align this way, right?
Yeah,
you could align those. That works.
So you could like align a wall to a grid.
Yeah. Good comment and good question.
And someone else mentioned Dalton Webb that is a good idea actually. The first feature you mentioned, the turning only showing the core layer of a wall.
Yeah, what about
it? To quickly dimension, which makes a lot of sense. You could just shut off all the finished layers, add all your dimensions, and then flip them back.
Yeah.
Even you could use the temporary view override thing.
Yep.
To do it in a click or two without messing up your view template. That's a good tip.
Really good tip, Dalton. I like that. Yeah.
Again, say you're not like zooming in, pressing tab, trying to get to the right line, looking in the bottom left corner to make sure that's actually, okay, that's the core line face I want.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Good
Having
comment,
to switch, sometimes you got to switch the detail level in a view so you can even see the wall layers and switch it back.
Definitely.
Maybe that makes this feature even a little cooler.
Yep, agreed. Also, shout out to Dalton and Jake. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. This is cool. Jake's a good friend and former Evolve Lab team member. So hope you're doing good, Jake. He's crushing it over there at Ball Aerospace, doing a bunch of cool LiDAR scanning. So shout out to Jake. All right, cool. So then moving on, let's go to the new model categories. Okay.
Oh yeah.
This is interesting. I have to say, like, I'm torn a little bit because I've always felt limited on these categories, and I'm sure you'll agree, Daniel. Like, generic model and specialty equipment get abused the most. Like, everybody that's a catch-all. Generic models and specialty equipment. And so I've always wanted to be able to create my own categories, but I know that's a double-edged sword because then users are just going to create, categories that just don't make sense, box or furniture leg or something, just too granular.
1783.
Yeah. That's right. And so, but they did add new categories, which is super helpful. So we now have audio visual devices. We also have fire protection. I think that one's long overdue, especially for those doing 3D coordination. Shout out to Paul on our team. He's doing a bunch of 3D coordination. So to be able to have fire protection available. The other one, food equipment service or food service equipment. The equipment industry of food equipment industry, of course, like everything of theirs, restaurants and hospitals, etc. Like having that, I would think would be really huge for them. They also have hardscape medical equipment. I used to work at HDR doing primarily hospitals for about 10 years of my adult life. And so being able to have medical equipment as its own category is huge, as well as signage. We had a signage consulting group.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to have like your own signage category was good. They also have temporary structures. I'm not sure if this is like, I don't know how to interpret this one. What is temporary structures? Like that's going to be like something that's not, I guess, maybe it's like a landscape kind of structure or something that isn't going to be built, there for like 20 years, maybe having that kind of.
I was imagining like, I don't know, maybe structures that will be demolished before the building is complete. Like they're just part of the construction process. Scaffolding, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, good comment.
Extra wall you might need. Sometimes, okay, maybe not so much in the structure category, but we did, for a lot of phased projects I worked on, I did a whole lot of airports. And they always had to close off and open different sections. The phasing plans got really complicated. But then again, those are like, I don't know if that fits here. But we would just phase those.
Yeah, that's what I...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I interpreted too at first, was like temporary, because I know you have temporary phasing, phase demolish and phase create. If you put them on the same phase, it's a temporary phase. But I think this is, to your point, I think that's not that. I think that's going to be like some kind of structure that sits outside the building, like you said, scaffolding maybe, or something like that would be a perfect example of that. And they also added vertical circulation. I'm guessing like, elevators, escalators, that kind of stuff. Is where you could use that. So that's cool.
Stairs already have a category, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of subcategories.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, when I'm speaking just like about buildings, usually vertical circulation encompasses these two. So that's a little strange.
Yeah.
I think some of these are nice, like you said. I think they'll help clean up clean up the equipment and generic models, like having fire protection or AV equipment. But
Totally.
it's still, in one sense, it's helping, but in another sense, without the sort of customized category ability you're talking about, it's kind of just creating more different boxes, but everything has to be in one of these boxes.
Yeah, it's a little bit of trying to control the chaos. Like, all right, we'll give you a little bit more, but
like the opposite of, you know, a less BIM centric modeling program like Rhino or SketchUp, etc., where you make layers and groups and you sort everything yourself. But here they come with all these inherited properties, which are sometimes handy for quickly making building documents. So I guess it's pros and cons.
Definitely. Dalton also had another comment, said could be more useful when it comes to temporary walls. So you could filter out temporary walls in a building and only show permanent walls. That's a good comment. Like for the go ahead.
But then you have like wall objects that are not of the wall category. I don't know how you do, unless you make a special family that's a temporary wall. But then
that's
it wouldn't
a good point.
Unless you built in like wall height and thickness and all the other things that walls inherently have.
Yeah, and walls are a system family versus temporary structure might be something different. I think you use it more as like a in-place family or you know, some kind of component.
Yeah, anyway, I heard it mentioned somewhere just for filtering it. It'll make it a little easier to filter by these new categories. Again, because in some models I've had like, oh, we can't hide generic models because like a third of our objects, random objects, are generic models. Like that one door that we couldn't, it's a door, but we had to, yeah.
Yep, it's a good comment. Moving on to the tags. This is pretty interesting and probably long overdue, in my opinion. The ability to be able to rotate tags. So in the past, you know, you could change this from model, vertical, horizontal, but they now introduced this angle. So you can actually change the angle of multiple tags to accommodate whatever angle of the building is. I thought that was pretty nice for that piece of it, and long overdue. I can't tell you how many projects I worked on. The tags just, you know, didn't match up with the geometry, and you're stuck trying to do, you know, overlapping walls. So I thought that was pretty nice.
That is pretty cool. I didn't know about that feature. I mean, they've had rotatable, I guess there's a lot of tag enhancements in this one, but they've had rotatable annotations for a while, which I use a lot.
That's true. That's true.
Like especially for buildings with some very slight angles in them, having to fit words in, rotating them like 5 degrees to get it to, I don't know, like label curtain wall panels or etc. Or mullions.
Or mullions. Oh, you can finally tag mullions.
Yeah, that's
so in the new feature, you know, you could always tag panels, but you couldn't tag the mullions. And so they introduced the ability to be able to tag mullions. And then probably, I would say this is, I may be biased, but this is probably my favorite new feature, is going to be the multi-tag feature. So you can actually click on, you know, your tag here, and then if I add a leader here, and let's just say free end, and it's doing this one, and here you can actually add other host and tag it, and then further, this is so cool. In here in your tag family, you can actually go through and add the count. So I added in here under, if you go to multi-leader tag, you can do host count, and you can add a host count. So I also did that.
That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, and I thought I was pretty excited about this one. It's like, okay, fine. What's that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the ability to tag multiple elements and have the leader point to it, I thought was really huge. Being able to count it was really huge. And then the other thing they did is that if you tag something, you're like, well, what if you tag something that's not?
Oh, yeah.
It does this varies. And this was everyone's argument always for years, is that, well, if you add other elements to the tag, it's not BIMmy, it's not smart. This allows you to have your cake and eat it too. You're able to tag multiple elements, and then anytime you get outside of that, it gives you this varies warning. So I thought that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it seems like so minor, but the varies one is huge, especially because not just in the tag, but in the actual, I think if you select multiple different types, it'll tell you which properties vary.
That's right.
And the default, I think so.
It does. I have a instance parameter of these. Let's see if I make these different. So like if I say like my instance mark is something, let's say just
yeah.
And then this is 2. And then if I grab both of these, it now says varies where before it used to be blank.
Yeah, which was before you would have no idea if all the things you've selected had the same property or not, or it just wasn't, it would be blank. So it could be not that, but it could be different, and then you could accidentally change a lot, which I saw all the time. I still see it all the time.
Totally. Yeah, because like to your point, is it blank or is it just 2 different values? This now gives you the ability to know the difference.
Did I see?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like I read in a blog somewhere that you can adjust that text, the varies text.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. So let's let me see here. Where are we at with our agenda? Let's we can go right there. So let's go to schedules. So if I go now to like a Mullion schedule, and let's say that I grabbed that mark here, and we bring that over. I also have a type mark here. Let's see, M1s, a lot of M1s. But if I go to under formatting, you can tell it right here, formatting, and you can click on whichever parameter, and you can say display as varies.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can do this as well. So like if you want to say, Daniel's a cool cat, you could also have that in there. And then if you have Mark, let me make sure I'm editing the right one. So if these are different, and then these get rolled up, right? If I uncheck itemize every instance, Daniel's a cool cat will show up there. So it's a cool little ability to modify and customize this to either show varies, your project settings, or whatever custom value you want.
I am a cool cat.
But is this right? Is the cool cat, are you supposed to spell it like K? Like I notice whenever it's slang, you're supposed to misspell it.
I think for me at least it should be, since my last name is literally K.
That's right. Yeah, Daniel K. So that's appropriate.
Oh.
So yeah, that's how you can add the varies in there, or even your own value, which is pretty cool. All right. Speaking of which, also, if we go back to our 3D view here, which I don't know, maybe I must have closed now. Actually, I think it's in my south elevation I want to show. Yeah. So in here, we also now have the ability that if you have a linked model, so I have this linked Revit model here, and if I tag these panels in this linked model, what would happen before is if you unlink this, your tags would get orphaned. So, and not remove, but if you, I believe, unload, you'd lose some of that, that tag information. Where now if you go through and you unload versus reload, and I say, okay, need some Jeopardy music. There we go. There's the tag. And so the tag comes back, which is really nice. So it retains that. It permeates through the rest of the project and retains it, which is really good.
Wow, does that work for dimensions too?
Ah, that's a good question. I don't know. I didn't see it. You could try it.
I didn't see it either, but I think that's at least for me, that's a bigger one. Having, when you sometimes you have to unload or remove and re-add models, and it doesn't keep the dimensional references.
Yep.
So a bunch of views, sheets that you have set up get affected.
Definitely.
That's cool. I wonder how they do that. I guess they save the reference with the linked model.
Yeah, they probably cache it some way, right?
Yeah, like they save that information about that model inside your model.
All right, let's see. Moment of truth. Did it save the dimensions? It does. Look at that, Daniel.
Yeah, so it might just save all the reference. Oh, that's kind of cool. Or at least dimensions and tags.
Yep. Yeah, that is nice. All right. All right. One I'm less excited about and just feels like, gosh, you should have had this for a while, is the ability to tag sloped ramps.
Oh my God.
So, and not tag, but spot slope. So you can now put a spot slope on your ramp.
Yeah, you can do it on a floor, on a roof, but like the one thing where the slope is probably most crucial, a ramp, you could not put a spot slope or spot elevation, I think.
Yeah.
I think you can do both now.
Yeah, I think you can do both now. Let's see, spot elevation. I don't know if I have one loaded. I do. There. So yeah, you can do that now, which is really nice. Okay.
I remember a post on this funny Thanks Revit blog a long time ago that was complaining about not having this issue. That might have been like Revit 2016 or something.
Definitely. Yeah, it's nice that they have this now introduced. Okay, this next part, I'm probably the most excited. I'm curious to see your thoughts, is all the stuff they've done in the schedule. So we touched on the varies piece.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to show like other things are like, finally, they finally have this. So within your schedules, they've done a few things. They've actually done a ton of things in here. This is very, very, very exciting. The inner nerd in me is like just jumping out of my skin. So if you go to filter, for the longest time, you could not filter by family and type. You can now filter by family and type. So that is huge to be able to filter by family and type. Doesn't mean you have to show it, of course. Like, you know, people have always said, well, you don't want to maybe show what your family and type is in a schedule. Well, you can make it, you know, hidden and then still filter by it. So that's what's really nice is you can filter now by family and type, which is huge. You can also filter by work set. And that's another big one. So like if you have like, in this example, like on my project, I have these units. So if I wanted to filter by work set equals units, I can do that. And it'll also filter by work set, which I thought was really nice. So I thought that was pretty good regarding some of the filtering features. Any thoughts on those ones, Daniel?
Yeah, I think these are pretty handy too. Not as cool. Yeah, they're quite neat.
They're quite.
I think when you say filter, I keep thinking back to when they added multiple filters to view filters. I can't remember what year that was. 2019 maybe.
Right.
That's old news now, but
that's right. Yep. Yeah, and there for sure.
Sometimes it's a little frustrating. Just having more control using information that's like it's already in the model, but now there's a little button for it.
Yep.
Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, why couldn't that be there?
Yeah, why can't you do?
Then I think like I'm a software developer, so I know sometimes things are much harder than they appear.
That's true. You're always like, oh, now I know why. Okay.
Sometimes I wonder if it's like some marketing scheme. I don't think it is, but you know how Apple sometimes, maybe they have new features, but they'll only release a few of them on their phone, and then they'll add like another one next year, the thing you really want to just keep selling.
Yep.
It doesn't make too much sense because Revit has a subscription model, so you always get the latest for the same price. So
yeah, there could be something to it though. You know, new users, if they're thinking about buying migrating to Revit or not. So I could see that logic. The other one of the other features is this split in place. So now you could always split schedules, but you couldn't place them across multiple sheets. And so now you have this ability, you always had to duplicate a schedule, filter it, drop that one. Now they have this split in place schedule function. So you can go split in place, and then you can choose what sheets you want to put it on, and then you can say split evenly, or you can do a custom feet and inches. I kind of wish they would do like rows.
Right,
like,
yeah.
I think that would be better, or the option to do both.
Or even better, like split. Yeah, when something changes.
Definitely. And I think too, like maybe it'll be like what you were saying, like that marketing thing. Maybe the 22.1. I know like the 0.1, they always release a few more features. Yeah. Maybe it'll be one of those. I'm just speculating, but anyways. So now you can split and place these. If I go split in place,
and it opens the sheet for you. Yeah.
Opens the sheet for you, and not only that. So if I place this one, it actually will place the other one as well. So and it'll place it in the same location. So this is, one half of my schedule. I just did everything under 100. So this first one, is 7 through 52. And then this other one is 53 through 99. And so it does that split in place on both, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that you could place them on like 30 sheets at once. But then again, like once you place them, the placing isn't too precise. So if you want to move them, you'll have to adjust it on every sheet.
That's true.
There's some add-ins for that. But.
That's true. And then the other thing they introduced is this filter parameters. I thought this was pretty cool. Like they've overhauled a lot of the schedule. So now you could do, filter by parameter type, whether it's a built-in project, shared parameter. You can do based on discipline. You can also do based on, the value type, whether it's in power or the type of value it's going to be, type versus instance. So if you have like just a ton of parameters, it allows you to filter those a bit quicker, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think this is cool. But again, this is one, it's very, very useful, but also a little frustrating because under the hood, a BIM model is literally like schedule. It's a whole bunch of databases that are just visualized into a 3D model, but really it's the schedules are kind of the closest you get to seeing that. All these little filtering tools, like, would have been nice to have access to them.
Yeah,
I think, this could even be improved further.
I agree.
But it's going to save a lot of frustration, a lot of time too. So
yep,
since it's good.
Yep. The other thing they introduced was the ability to put shared parameters in a key schedule. So for any of the architects listening that have had code schedules and you wanted the ability to use your key schedule to populate in a tag, you could never do this. Now they put tag calculated value, but you could never take your occupancy load ratios and put that over into your tag from your key schedule. Now with the advent of being able to put in a shared parameter into your key schedule, this was grayed out. This is now available. Yeah. This is huge, in my opinion, and extremely, extremely helpful. It's one of those things like you should have had it already, but it's like finally.
That's the opposite of frustrating. It's a very unfrustrating one. Like, oh yes, it's finally there. Like it was very, very frustrating before.
That's right.
They figured out a way to do that.
Yep. All right, and then finally, to kind of round off the schedules portion, the other is kind of what's the opposite of frustrating is you can finally export to a CSV file. So to your point, Daniel, it being like a building information modeling tool, why in the world have we not had the ability to export to a CSV or some kind of data file? It's always been a .txt. So the ability to export to CSV is kind of a finally for me as well.
Yeah, finally, I feel like in this Revit release, there's not one feature that I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. I think the tapered walls is pretty cool, but I'm not wowed that much because I don't see it being used by me that much. But just interoperability. What?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say interoperability, that thing in general. Like being able to do the CSV, also the format integration that they totally kind of overhauled. the Rhino links. We didn't talk about the PDF exporting and integration, but that's pretty cool too.
You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't care.
I think that's
all right.
Yeah. And you talked before about the data drop and so this is, data chasm, whatever.
Yeah, you have the data drop chasm between different programs, the model drop chasm between different softwares. And so having the ability, to jump over that chasm is huge. To your point, yes, we do have the export to PDF function now. This one, I felt like a lot of people in the industry were like, this is the greatest thing ever. I was always like, I don't know, you still had the ability to do it, here. Granted, you have to have a print driver. So I haven't still seen the huge value of this one. Yeah, it's native. Yes, it's integrated. Yes, you don't have to have a print driver, but it's kind of like you could kind of circumvent it the other way. Unless there's probably some things that you can export, I guess, out of Revit that you can't print to PDF. That's the only huge one I would see on that side.
You know what I was thinking of? It's Revit 2020, but there are some new PDF tools available in BIM 360. Like to import PDFs and actually access the line data and stuff, use them in plans, take measurements, etc. I think I was mixing that in with this.
No, it's all good, man.
That's cool.
Yeah. Those are some really good ones as well. If that one doesn't excite you, one of the ones I'm curious maybe is the ability for the code analysis. So they've started to introduce a few more functionalities here in this route analysis. For anybody that's using Revit for a long time, we've had to always do like a travel distance line-based family. They introduced a few years ago, like the path of travel, which was really nice, the reveal obstacles, but now they have this multiple path indicator. They also have these people. So like if you want to, socially distance your people and make sure that there's not going to be an issue with that. I thought this was pretty cool from a kind of like data-driven kind of solution. You can now start to put in your path of travel, and it will honor like where these people are at, which was pretty interesting. Let me see if I can find one. Like if I'm going maybe this direction, that probably isn't going to be too easy. But it'll actually honor this. Let's see, maybe if I put one of these guys something more in the way. And then now let's see if we do this. Path of travel. It'll kind of like circumvent, like go around the person, which I thought was pretty cool. So you could start to have these kind of people here at either desk or otherwise to make sure people can traverse the space without overlapping or interfering with their neighbor, which is pretty cool. And they also introduced the spatial grid, these grid patterns. You can do, I thought these were more special than they are, but in here you can actually start to kind of visually see like, what that grid could look like. It's basically just a filled region, but you put it in there and place it, and then it will populate. You have to select the room and say finish, and it puts those in there for you. So just a way to kind of spatially lay this out with your social distancing. So
that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Like put a different kind of visual scale on the drawing.
Yep.
In a way, it reminds me of that like COVID simulator thing we worked on.
Definitely.
Fun little,
Definitely. I was going to give you a quick shout on that. I was wondering, let's just show real quick. This isn't Revit 2022, but you did build out a cool little simulator that did something, I don't know, did like the simulation for it, which was really nice. This guy. Let's see. Here.
Oh yeah, this guy. Yeah, it was a quick little study for looking at exhibit halls, right?
Yep. Yeah, exhibit halls, and could you traverse them without running into people? And if people honored like the 6-foot distance rule or not?
If they did. Yeah, this was an interesting little study, especially because a lot of our occupancy loads and densities and things were kind of thrown off. because they weren't designed for pandemic safety. Most of them are designed based on fire safety, right?
Right.
Evacuation times.
That's right. All right. The last thing I want to show before we get to your part, Daniel, because we are running out of time, and I want to give you enough time here, is the sheet issues revisions. They now give you the ability to have your own custom numbering sequence. And so in here, you could actually start to have, your addendums grouped or your CPRs grouped. And then you can associate a prefix with this, minimum number of digits, starting number, etc. So in this one, I did 3 digits starting at 1. So you can see it starts to go through that. And so they've introduced that now. So you can have a little bit more customizability around your revisions, which is nice. It's a nice to have, in my opinion, but not mind-blowing, which I think we should now share your part, which is mind-blowing. In my opinion, yours is, I think so. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you now and show what you can do with the Revit API and the ceiling tool, which we have a special giveaway for everyone listening. So Daniel, you share your screen. I'll stop sharing mine.
Try. That thing you see the building? The thing you were just talking about, the renumbering, I think that's really handy to have. It reminds me of our renumbering add-in. But again, it's like designed very specifically for revisions. Or in Revit, there's sheets, there's views, there's view title, detail numbers, wall types. There's so many different things that could use like maybe a better renumbering system.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Good start. So I got to play around with the new API basically just for a day. And the coolest thing, for me, the coolest things that you get are the access to things you couldn't previously control through the API. So the API is like, if you're writing code, there are bits of Revit that you're allowed to change or modify. And the one we have here, the biggest request for a long time has been ceilings. Revit has not allowed you to programmatically create ceilings.
Yeah, and now they do.
Also in Dynamo, you could do this with Python. Now in 2022, you have access to there's some make Dynamo nodes that'll do this too. The one we did is a little, just to kind of celebrate this, is a ceiling from room tool. So I guess I'll just try it out.
And you built this just yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of standards, because it's your company in place that kind of have a lot of pre-built templates and stuff. But yeah, this is like a one-day little project. That's why it's missing a lot of things. But essentially, it pulls up a list of all rooms in the model. Actually, I think just enclosed rooms, because you can't make a ceiling for an unenclosed room.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can select them all. I got a little filter. So if you just want the 1 bedrooms, I just type 1. Maybe I'll do them all since we're here. Level, I think the left number is the room number, which on this model, they're not really sorted by floor. But in case they were, that could be handy. Yeah, you can see they don't really. Anyway, you can select them, select your ceiling height. I'm going to make it 4 feet, so it's something we can see. Select the ceiling type from what's in the model. This doesn't have many, kind of like a sample model. Maybe all of them, not this one. All of them except that one. This is probably a lot of rooms, so it might take a minute. But if you ever have to create a whole bunch of ceilings, 161 ceilings.
Dude, that is incredible.
They're in there. They're 4 feet above the ground, just why they're intersecting the doors.
Right. You did this just for demo purposes so we could see the ceilings, but it just created, if you wanted to put them at 8 feet or 10 feet, but it just created 161 ceilings in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, we could do it again at 8 feet. Sounds better. 8.5. And I think if I don't pick a type, it just goes with the generic type. Yeah. Actually, it doesn't take that long, because think about, in Revit, I'm sure you've had to edit sketch and save sketch, and usually just that operation can take some time, especially since some of these, like this one. Can I select just one? No?
Should be able to.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, this is like, it's not that complicated, but it's 8 or 9 lines.
Yeah, but I mean, it would take you more than 3 seconds to sketch that out. Even with the pick tool, like to pick all those rooms, like that was so much quicker.
And again, Revit also has these plans set up. Oh, those are sheets. If I go to a floor plan, Revit already has a tool to make ceilings with 1 click, I think.
Yep.
Oops, that's a roof. Ceiling, automatic ceiling.
Yeah, but it's 1 room at a time.
Yeah. Not visible. And you have to select, I guess I have to make rooms visible. But it is 1 at a time. So now we can sort of do that. Another thing I want to add, I don't know if I should mention, is like an offset. So if you wanted your ceiling to be like 1/2 inch from the wall, because the wall goes past, whatever ceiling it is, grid system. Anyway, that's that. I think, anything else I should share with this guy?
I think that's it, other than we're going to be giving it away for free. So we're going to post it on the website. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll put a link in the description. If you guys are watching, please like and subscribe if you guys want access to future content like this. That way you get notified. But yeah, we're giving it away for free so everyone can use it, and let us know how you like it.
Yeah. Ceilings.
Love it. Cool.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I got with that.
All right. Well, I think we're at time. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks so much for hanging out with Daniel and I. Hopefully you guys get a little bit of insight of those new Revit features. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. And then we'll also get that add-in posted for you as well in the comments. So keep a lookout for that. Might be either today or early next week. But we should have something there for you guys available soon to be able to download, install. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thanks so much.
Yeah.